The unilateral action that the Trump administration has taken today against every nation in the world does not come as a surprise. For Australia, these tariffs are not unexpected, but let me be clear, they are totally unwarranted. President Trump referred to reciprocal tariffs. A reciprocal tariff would be 0, not 10%. The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations' partnership. This is not the act of a friend. Today's decision will add to uncertainty in the global economy, and it will push up costs for American households. It is the American people who will pay the biggest price for these unjustified tariffs. This is why our government will not be seeking to impose reciprocal tariffs. We will not join a race to the bottom that leads to higher prices and slower growth. We will stand up for Australia. We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters. Our existing free trade agreement with the United States contains dispute resolution mechanisms. We want to resolve this issue without resorting to using these, as we do support continued constructive engagement with our friends in the United States. Our shared history, our friendship, our alliance, these are all bigger than a poor decision. But the Australian people have every right to view this action by the Trump administration as undermining our free and fair trading relationship and counter to the shared values that have always been at the heart of our two nations' long-standing friendship. This will have consequences for how Australians see this relationship. These are uncertain times, but Australians can be absolutely certain of this. Our government will always stand up for Australian jobs, Australian industry, Australian consumers and Australian values. That is why we've been crystal clear with the United States about what is not up for negotiation. Australia is a great trading nation. 1 in 4 of our jobs depends upon trade. But we'll never trade away the things which make us the best country in the world. The Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme is an Australian institution, a proud Labor creation that my government has built on. The investments we're making in the PBS mean that life-saving and life-changing medicines, which would otherwise cost people thousands of dollars, will be no more than $25 a script. Under Labor, that will never be up for negotiation. We don't want our health system to be more American, we only want it to be more Australian. The same is true for agriculture. We have made it very clear to the United States that we will not compromise on biosecurity. We will not weaken the measures that protect our farmers and producers from the risks of disease or contamination. Indeed, we've made it a priority to strengthen biosecurity, because one of the things that makes Australian food and fibre the best in the world is that people everywhere know that it stands for quality, it also stands for safety. Another key point was technology. Our government stands by our media bargaining code. We strongly support local content in streaming services so Australian stories stay on Australian screens. And we have no intention of repealing the world-leading legislation that we passed with overwhelming support that set the minimum age for social media at 16. That policy is about what's best for Australian children and Australian parents. These are our priorities. We stand up for Australia's interests. While we have an important trading relationship with the United States, it's important to put this in some perspective. It only accounts for less than 5% of our exports. Many other countries will be hit much harder by today's decision than Australia. And because it is across the board, with no exemptions of course, there's an argument actually about comparative impact of this decision made by President Trump, that puts us in a position where I think no nation is better prepared than Australia for what has occurred today. For 3 years, my government has been working to make Australia's economy more resilient and our exports more diverse. We've deepened our economic engagement in Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia and India, the fastest growing region of the world in human history. We are implementing our Southeast Asia economic strategy, developed by Nicholas Moore, and I thank him and give a shout out to him yet again for the extraordinary work that he did on behalf of the nation that he loves. Our roadmap for economic engagement with India is what we launched here in Melbourne at Monash University just a month ago. This is about delivering for Australian businesses in what will be the third largest economy in the world. We've signed a new trade agreement with the United Arab Emirates, a tribute to the guy on my left here for the nature of that. What that has done is open up the markets of the Middle East through the UAE. We're boosting exports of Australian beef and red meat, expanding trade with the UK, European Union and Indonesia. And of course we've cleared away over $20 billion in trade impediments with China. Backing local manufacturing with our Future Made in Australia plan. Investing in the skills, technology and energy to make more things here and stand on our own 2 feet. We're building on these actions today. First, we will strengthen our anti-dumping regime to safeguard key sectors like steel, aluminium and manufacturing against unfair competition. Second, we will provide $50 million to affected sectors, particularly through peak bodies such as the National Farmers Federation, to secure and grow new markets for their world-class products. This work will be backed by 5 new business and investment missions to priority markets within the first 100 days of our second term. Third, we will establish a new economic resilience program through our National Reconstruction Fund. This will provide $1 billion in zero-interest loans for firms to capitalise on new export opportunities. Fourth, just as we are already encouraging more people to buy Australian, our Labor government will buy Australian too. This comes on the back of the announcements that I made in Port Kembla, for example, about procurement of Australian steel. But what this means is that Australian businesses will be front of the queue for government procurement and contracts, maximising value for local businesses and the taxpayer. And fifthly, a Labor government will establish a critical minerals strategic reserve. I'll have more to say on this over coming weeks. The world has thrown a lot at Australia over the past few years. We had COVID, the long tail of COVID, and then we had the impact of global inflation. We cannot control what challenges we face, but we can determine how we respond. Australia will always respond by defending our national interest. And our government will always deal with global challenges the Australian way, standing up for our national interest, backing our people and building for the future. We'll hear from the Foreign Minister, then the Trade Minister, then happy to take a few questions.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. It's good to be here to respond to this announcement with both you and my colleague, Senator Farrell. Well, today's decision underlines that we do live in an uncertain world, and we understand that many Australians find that challenging. But what I would emphasise is that our country faces that increasingly uncertain world with independence, with resilience, and with more choices. And this is what we have been focused on over these last 3 years, doing the hard work of building common ground in more diversified partnerships. Not just relying on what we've done in the past to keep working in a different world. So we are deepening our cooperation with traditional partners and allies. But we have also, as the Prime Minister has outlined, strengthened Australia's relationships across our region where our prosperity and our security are most on the line. With India, that has overtaken the United States as our fourth largest trading partner, with Japan and Korea, with Southeast Asia, which will soon be the world's fourth largest economy, where we are implementing the Southeast Asian Economic Strategy to 2040 that the Prime Minister described, and with the Pacific, where we have delivered transformational partnerships after the previous lost decade under Peter Dutton and the Coalition. I would also say we see from the decision today that some of the countries of our region are the hardest hit by these tariffs, and we do not underestimate the disruption these decisions will have on the economies of our region and the global system. But we face those challenges calmly and maturely. We certainly won't be picking fights in our neighbourhood. Our approach is to be credible and mature, to deal calmly with these challenges and to seize the opportunities that lie ahead. And we succeed best in this pursuit when we stand together as Australians, when we stand up for Australians together. So I would say this is a day for anyone who is a political leader or who aspires to be a political leader to be part of that unity and stand with us for Australia. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Don.
Thanks, Prime Minister, and thanks, Penny. The Albanese government will do two things from this point onwards. Number one, we'll continue to engage with the United States to seek to remove these unfair 10% tariffs on Australian goods. We believe that it's by negotiation, by discussion, by sitting down and explaining to people the issues at hand that we can best present the case for Australia for these tariffs on our program of expanding Australia's trade relationship. In this 3-year term, we've introduced a new free trade agreement with the United Kingdom. That's already doubled our trade with the United Kingdom. In the case of beef, a 500% increase. We've established a new free trade agreement with India that's already delivering significant benefits to both our agriculture and our manufacturing sector, and we're on the cusp of another agreement to expand our relationship with India. As the Prime Minister mentioned, we've got a new agreement with the United Arab Emirates. Think of the United Arab Emirates as the Woolies warehouse of the Middle East. And we're getting every product in there, tariff-free, then you can get it to all of the countries in that region. On Monday afternoon, I'm talking with my European counterpart. We all know what happened the last time we had discussions with the Europeans. I think things have changed, and the opportunity to have further negotiations about a free trade agreement on better terms than have been previously offered now exists, and we should take that opportunity. In the last month, I've spoken to all of our major trading partners, and we're going to continue expanding our trade opportunities with them. I've also had the opportunity to speak to all of the affected industries by these decisions. The Prime Minister's outlined the way in which we are going to continue to support those industries, but in particular, push them out the door into new markets. That's what we've got to do. It's a changed world, but we have to push Australian companies out into the world. Why is that? Well, because we know that if you're an export-focused company, your profits are higher, but more importantly, the wages of your staff are higher. So we have now a renewed opportunity. People want to talk to us. We want to talk to them. It's all about expanding our opportunities to get our wonderful food, wine and manufacturing product into the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Don. We're going to go to Paul, then Angira, then we'll sort of go to and from.
Prime Minister, you talked about this decision having consequences for how Australians perceive the relationship. What are those consequences? And given we've got the minimum 10%, do you consider that a relatively good deal or the best we could have got?
There's no doubt that there's no one who's got a better deal, and people will see that themselves. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. It's very clear that President Trump was determined to go down this road. We have made very strong representations. Ministers our ambassador and people in the embassy, people at departmental level. We've used every asset at our disposal. But what it does mean, it's a bit like what I was saying yesterday. Steel and aluminium, there's not more steel or aluminium being produced in the United States today than there was in February. If you have a tariff across the board, that has a comparatively neutral position for imports coming in, and indeed some countries have higher tariffs. Canada, for example, which is another major exporter of aluminium to the United States. This position is, the minimum is 10%. Norfolk Island, interestingly, is I think 29%. I'm not sure what Norfolk Island major exports are to the United States and why it's been singled out, but it has on the table which is there. But it is across the board. It's quite clear that the Trump administration was determined to do this.
And we're going to bring in Jacob Grieber now, who is at Parliament House for us this morning. Jacob, it is difficult, I think, to think back to find another event on the global stage that has the potential to upend an Australian election campaign. What will the major parties be making of this morning?
Well, they've been bracing for this for some time, James. I think there was a really important comment by the Prime Minister in the Q&A, the part that we caught, where he pointed out that no one has actually got a better deal than Australia. Or another way of saying it is it could have been worse for us. We're actually only getting 10% across the board. There doesn't appear to be any other country that is being hit less than that. So I think that's a really important political statement, because he's going to come under attack from the opposition for not having done enough to avoid these tariffs, for not having had the connection with the White House, with Donald Trump himself in person. Of course, Modi, the Japanese Prime Minister, they all made the trek and they are facing much larger tariffs than Australia is. So the Prime Minister, in as much as this is bad news, will be portraying this as a relative win. And he did make the point that comparatively, America's only 5% of our exports. Our nation is prepared and ready to counter the effects of this. They've put $1 billion aside for loans to get some of our affected exporters into new markets. They're talking about a trade mission to all of these markets within 100 days after the election. So they've got a plan, they say, and they're rolling it out to try and counter this. And I thought the other thing, James and Emma, the language was very strong. He came as close to saying Donald Trump is completely off the reservation as you can in diplomatic speak. Not only did he say this is not the act of a friend, it's a poor decision, totally unwarranted. And here's the killer. A reciprocal tariff on Australia would be 0, not 10%. So the tariff has no basis in logic from the Prime Minister's point of view.
Jacob, as we're speaking to you, we understand we do have the media conference with Anthony Albanese back, so I think we will possibly go to that right now.
It has less action against its imports into the United States than Australia. That's an important point. We'll continue to engage constructively with President Trump and his administration.
Can I just respond very briefly to 2 points? First, Australia has a consistent position. We believe in free and fair trade because we know trade fuels Australian jobs and Australian profit. So we think that is a good thing, and so we will always advocate with whomever for more open access to markets. The second point I'd make is the point the Prime Minister made in his opening statement. You know, our shared history, our friendship, our alliance, the US status is our most important and principal strategic partner. These are all bigger than this decision.
Thank you, Latika. Just a couple of points. Can I make the distinction between what happened with China and what's happening here? When China imposed a 220% tariff on Australian wine, that killed wine exports the next day, stone dead. That's not what's happened here. Australian wine will now apparently go into the United States at a 10% tariff. We'll still continue to sell wine into the United States, but
Yeah.
well, from what I can see, that is not what President Trump has done today. But let's put beef to one side. In respect of all of the products, we will continue to sell our product into the United States. What we're going to do is look for other markets as well to sell our products in. Now, you're right. The agreement with the European Union did fall over beef imports into the EU. The world has changed as of today. The world has changed for Europe. Europe is now subject to a much higher tariff into the United States. If they're sensible, they will make us a better offer on the issues that made the agreement fall over last time, and we will get a free trade agreement with the EU, the largest economy in the world.
We've got a couple more over here. I've said Tom, then Trudy, then Charles, and then we'll go to this side. Tom.
Do you have any early idea of the sort of economic hit Australia can expect as a result of these tariffs? Or are you confident that can be avoided altogether? And just quickly, it appears that pharmaceuticals and bullion have been carved out of the 10% tariffs globally. Is that a good outcome for Australia given the size of our exports in those areas sectors to the US?
Oh, look, we obviously, I'll have more to say about pharmaceuticals very soon, later this morning, to give you a bit of a tip-off of where we're headed next. But we regard this, because it's universal, of course, we'll await an assessment. To be fair to us, we, out of respect to you, are standing up less than half an hour after President Trump's press conference. We, of course, will analyse the impact, but importantly, no country that imports to the United States will have less tariffs than Australia. That's an important point of what has arisen out of today. Trudy.
Just circling back to the beef issue, Donald Trump seemed to make a big song and dance about Australia banning US beef imports here. Is there any willingness from our side to loosen that over time, or is that a red line for you, no US beef?
No, well, what we have done in the negotiations as well, the beef issue was about mad cow disease, to give it its colloquial name, and about also the fact that beef to Australia couldn't be guaranteed of whether it had also come from Canada or Mexico as well. So it was those issues that we're working through. Those issues are being worked through. There is currently frozen beef can come into Australia. We certainly, in the discussions we've had with the United States, put a position that was consistent with ensuring our biosecurity is looked after, then we would give consideration. But that didn't progress, and so that is where we are at this point. Charles.
Prime Minister, how did you find out about the tariffs Australia would be receiving? And given India, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia have all received high tariffs, does this make our job as like-minded democracies in the region harder, pushing back against China?
There's no doubt that the response on a range of issues, be it action on climate change as well as trade issues, will affect the strategic competition that's here in the region. There's no question that that will occur. And countries will have their own assessments of that. We've been expecting this decision. We put a position to the United States. The United States responded. We responded to them. There's been a series of written to and fro, if you like. There's been negotiations with Mr. Lutnick and with others in the United States as well. So this came as no surprise to us. We had prepared for a period of time the response, the 5-point response that we've announced this morning. We met as leaders last night, and again had contact this morning with obviously the relevant ministers as well as our economic ministers. Just here.
Given structural issues at the WTO, what confidence do you have that any complaint Australia makes will be progressed? And one for Minister Farrell, you walked away from negotiations last time with the EU. Will you walk away again if they don't offer greater market access for ag products?
These take some time, the WTO. We know that that's the case. Our free trade agreement with the United States does have dispute resolution mechanisms. We want this to be resolved in a way that avoids those contests. And if I can be so bold as to answer on your behalf, we'll always stand up for our national interest. The agreement with the EU wasn't good enough. We walked away. If it's good enough, we'll sign up.
Prime Minister.
Just here. We're going.
Just so Tess gets her answer, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And how significant could a strategic reserve of critical minerals be? Could that be a bargaining chip in trying to get a better deal for Australia from the White House?
Australia's in a strong position. We've got the whole periodic table just about in this country. That's a good thing.
Prime Minister, Peter Dutton's been on 2GB already this morning describing your inability to get that third phone call as a significant failure. What is the strategy now for getting the President on the phone, and what are you hoping Greg Norman can do to assist Australia's case?
Well, one is what I'd like is for Peter Dutton to stand up for Australia and to back Australia's national interest. This isn't a time for partisanship, I wouldn't have thought, but people will draw their own conclusions about his behaviour that you've just indicated. That's consistent with last time around on aluminium and steel, where Mr Dutton came out and was critical of Australia, not critical of the United States for imposing these tariffs, even though they were universal and across the board. And Greg Norman is, of course, a great Australian. I had dinner with him last night. He's someone I've got to know over the years. He's my nominee on the Olympic board for the Brisbane 2032 Olympics. We are using every asset at our disposal. Ministers, people in departments, our embassy in Washington DC, our business community links and our other links as well to advance Australia's national interests.
Prime Minister, the other day you appeared to play down the significance of your personal relationship with Donald Trump when it came to securing this carve-out. In other settings, you talk about your dear friendship with Narendra Modi as key to that relationship. Yeah. Is that an inconsistency? And just back to Charles's question, we understand that talks have been ongoing, but when did the White House give you their final confirmation on their decision? On the first, no. On the second, we were very clear about where this was headed.
Prime Minister, what is your message to Australians, including those inside the Labor movement, who will see this as another reason for Australia to start pulling back in relationships with the US, including reconsidering AUKUS?
Our relationship with the United States is an important one for us, and our defence relationship with the United States is one that's in our interests.
Prime Minister, have you spoken to Ambassador Kevin Rudd this morning since this announcement? What is he
I've chosen to speak to you first. I came straight down here, with respect.
Well, then when will you speak to him? What message will you convey to him? And are you still confident that he can advocate?
I have spoken with Kevin Rudd on a daily basis over recent times, as have ministers. There are some who... I'll make this point about Kevin Rudd. No one can question Kevin Rudd's work ethic. Kevin Rudd works relentlessly in Australia's national interest, and he has developed very positive relationships with key people in the Trump administration.
There seems to be some uncertainty about whether Australian beef exports will be banned. Have you or have any government officials had any conversations with US officials about whether beef would be targeted and banned? Did we know this was coming?
We have come straight from, we've given you respect, refer to previous answers, by coming straight here. We are aware that beef has been an issue. That's been, as I said to an earlier answer, this is one of the issues that we were negotiating over between Australia and the United States. that did not reach an agreement because the United States did not reach an agreement with any nation.
First of all, I think the thrust of that question was, did you have any inkling that a ban on beef was possible before today?
We have been, well, I refer to previous answer, yes.
Yeah, secondly, the Trump administration's list of tariff rates that other countries impose on the US puts ours at 10%. You said it should be 0. So where has that number come from? Is it just a fake number they've made up?
Well, they have imposed a minimum of 10%.
No, I'm talking about the rates that they say Australia imposes on them.
They have made a decision that there will be a 10% tariff minimum from every nation. That's a political decision. This is not an economic decision. This is a political...
The Trump administration's number saying that Australia has an effective 10% tariff rate on them, is that a real number or not? How did they calculate that?
Well, I think with respect, I did just answer that. This is a minimum of 10% that they have imposed. It's a political decision that the Trump administration have made.
Prime Minister, just to follow up on that beef question, I mean, we're all getting used to this idea that Donald Trump means what he says, and we all heard him today say there was going to be a ban on US beef as of midnight US time. So what information do you have that tells you that that's not happening?
I didn't say that. I said that beef was a part of the negotiation between Australia and the United States. In the written agreements that went between our two nations, it is one of the things that was discussed. We will, of course, seek further clarity about all of the decisions that are made, but the decision as well is to impose across-the-board tariffs on all goods entering the United States.
Doesn't that mean we have been singled out, Prime Minister?
Here.
On beef, you say it was an element of the discussions, it was an issue that was raised. At any point before this announcement today, did American officials say to Australia, we are thinking about banning beef imports? Was that particular issue raised in that way?
Look, there were a range of decisions made, including the United States seeking changes to the beef access regime to Australia. That was raised. Over here.
Prime Minister, you spoke briefly about meeting with Greg Norman, but what advice did he give you on how best to manage Donald Trump?
I'll tell you what advice I would give anyone I negotiate with and who we have private discussions with, which is to not come to a press conference and talk about the details afterwards. Look, Greg Norman clearly is someone who is a proud Australian. He's someone who, of course, lives largely in Florida. He's someone with connections with the US administration, and we are engaging with Australians who have connections with the United States to advance our national interests. Last one.
Prime Minister, is Jacinda Allen welcome alongside you on the campaign trail?
Yes. Thanks very much.
And that is the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese leaving the media conference there with Trade Minister Don Farrell and the Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong as well. Now, this is, of course, after the announcement by Donald Trump of a range of tariffs, including a baseline 10% tariff, a reciprocal tariff, as he says. The Prime Minister says if you're talking about a reciprocal tariff for Australia, that should mean 0%. Beef was singled out as well, but exactly what that means, I guess we will find out.
Prime Minister says that it was not unexpected, but he says that it was totally unwarranted and that this was not the act of a friend. That is some of the stronger language we have heard from the Prime Minister.